I'm Kyle Kirkwood, Director of Training at Pacvue, and I'm sitting here with Zach from the Strategic Consulting team. Zach, how long have you been with Pacvue?
I've been here 3.5 years.
And what do you do on the day-to-day?
I work with clients. I work with existing account managers. I work with you on building training.
Zach builds all of our training. I actually just am the face of it.
Yeah, pretty face.
Yeah.
Actually, most of my job now is transitioned to trying to upskill users in some capacity and helping people work the best with the brands or agencies that they work with.
So I think one thing that we've kind of started a lot of these interviews with today has been something interesting that you've done at Pacvue that is a memorable story that when it comes to working with clients. Like, what's something that has been a major success that you're proud of?
I think the relationships that we have with the retailer teams and the ability to get special treatment for our clients from Amazon, from Walmart, Instacart, whether it's, you can't quote this KPI or this metric, but I'll tell it to you and you can kind of adjust your strategy on it. I think the complexity and depth with which we work with our clients that allows us to be so ingrained with a brand that we operate like entirely like we're part of their team.
So you have an Amazon background. You were a vendor manager.
Correct.
And not everyone on your team has worked at Amazon. You've got people who come from agency life. They come from brands. I think something that everyone assumes that we're all kind of getting treated the same in the Amazon ecosystem. And what I've learned a bit from you is Amazonians speak to each other in kind of a special way, and you know how to interact with them. Where do you think brands specifically are kind of missing with their relationships with Amazon? What are some things that they could do better to improve that relationship?
In any relationship with a retailer or a salesperson at a retailer on the ad side or retail, you have to understand how they're incentivized at that time. So early on, I like to level set with a salesperson if they have a quota, if they have specific products that they're pushing of some sort, understand why behind it, and use kind of the intermediary position between the brand and the retailer or salesperson of whatever sort. Help frame any pitch, earn trust with both sides as a result, because I'm facilitating better understanding of why the product is being pitched, what it solves, what's the brand pain point versus what they're trying to do. Help refine that offer and that pitch so that in the end they're pitching things that are successful more often to the brands, and just facilitate that relationship as an intermediary.
I think that's interesting because oftentimes the relationship between Amazon and a brand or a seller even, it feels very transactional, and that's fine because if we're profitable and they're profitable, then we can just continue on this way and we don't necessarily need a person there to work with, right? What are some of the benefits of having an actual relationship with a person at a retailer?
Beta opportunities or alpha opportunities even. It's early access to programs or a heads up that something's coming down the pipeline in the future that you can plan for. It's basically just getting the brand included to some degree with better planning, better foresight into what's going to come. Mostly that. Forward looking.
So I guess some examples would be like AMC a few years ago. People were talking about it, but no one had access to it. And that's people who got access to it had good relationships, most likely. They didn't just shell it out to random people.
Correct. Yeah, and Pacvue provides, I think, the base expertise and the breadth of client that we have, knowing that we're here. Amazon in particular wants to work with us, and the other retailers do too. We're preferred partners with everybody, but on Amazon there's more, let's say, larger scale beta opportunities and things that are coming. So knowing on a large client, whether it's agency or brand, this thing is coming down the pipeline, we can push it up the food chain at Pacvue and help facilitate that more broadly. But within the individual client relationship, that relationship allows them to push for us to be included.
So we talked about the brand side and having that relationship. What do you think is a blind spot for agencies that are representing these brands in their retail media? What's a blind spot for them when they can either be a liaison between the retailer and the brand if they're really engaged with the relationship. Sometimes they can be an obstacle for either one of those parties. What's the ideal state for an agency managing a large brand on one of these retailers? And what are some blind spots that they don't know that they're messing up?
I think generally speaking, they're not familiar with retail. And so what they could do to improve would be the holistic story. So things are viewed in a vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
Retail performance was this, search performance was this, display performance was this. But the storytelling aspect with Amazon Marketing Cloud, for example, and other analytics kind of resources that Pacvue has, and then also the individual retailers, it allows you to tell the story that can be taken elsewhere. And so what happened on search can inform content updates. Although we don't do content specifically, someone who is very ingrained in learning from what's happening, how customer behavior is changing, that allows you to be an advisor to the brand.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably the biggest pain point for brands that I'm hearing right now, is that they don't get the attention and the level of like ingrained support that you'd have if you had something in-house. And most of them don't want something in-house,
right?
At least not right now.
And why don't they?
It's expensive and it's really hard to hire the expertise.
Right.
So they go to an agency that has someone quits, is fired, switches accounts, whatever. You can interchange someone with hopefully minimal, downtime.
Mm-hmm. I think with retail media management in general, like we again, the like transactional point, we just focus as advertisers, we focus in on our KPIs, are the things that we influence. And what you're saying is there are so many other factors that the business and the brand is thinking about. You are one piece of that. You are one cog in the wheel. And being the broader your knowledge on the entire business, not only gives you better insights as to like why your ads are doing what they're doing, but it also helps the brand like build confidence with you. What are some of the other benefits? Because it's not easy we're all busy. Agency people are busy, advertisers are busy. It's hard to go out and learn these concepts. They're not simple to learn. People go and get master's degrees to figure this stuff out. So it's a heavy lift. Why is it worth it for an individual advertiser?
I don't think you can. I don't think you can be a great advertiser if you don't have some base knowledge of everything else in retail media. So you don't have to be an expert on every piece, but understanding what the changes you're making do elsewhere, at least the interaction is important, just to help contribute to strategy. I think instead of being just an executor, but also being someone who can provide insight or commentary on, if you change this, it changes this for me. And if I change this, it changes that for you. Understanding what's all connected and how and why it matters. I think if you want to retain clients, if you want to continue to grow your business, whatever the case is, you have to do it.
So something that I've noticed that you do really well is you kind of embed yourself into the brand team. You are not an attachment that is distant and remote and contracted. You kind of embed yourself and you become a part of that team, or at least that seems the way that you go about it. And some of the interesting conversations that I've heard you have are maybe about budgeting and shifting budgets around from different places in the business, things that could not be done if we all operate in our silos. If the ads team just does the ads, well, the search team and the media team, and then the commerce team, and we all just stay in our silos, you might have a fine business, but there's a lot of flexibility and there's a lot of ways to make impact by having relationships across functional teams. Can you talk a little bit about the way that you do that without giving away, who we're talking about? But I'm just curious, how did you know that is important, and maybe a specific example of how that's been useful?
Yeah, I'd say I don't know. At first, that's just kind of how I operate. It's not good for workload. I definitely spent too many hours on businesses, generally speaking. just because I think in agency world, no matter what part of the business you're in, driving success is priority number one. And so you just have to, I always say you have to be a grinder. It's like an Amazon mentality is you just have to get it done. It doesn't matter when it is. So I think it's important to invest in the one-on-one relationship with the points of contact. That allows you to understand what are their personal KPIs, how are they bonused, what does their leadership want to see. I love to meet with the finance, product supply, those types of people to help them understand what we do and why it matters. And in the future, that allows you to have that trust with them. They have the understanding of what you do. And then they know, okay, that this person's priority is to drive our business in this way. Right. This is really applicable for us because we have Pacvue Commerce. We have all these solutions for different people within a brand, and having met them in the past allows me to understand who does what at the company, how they think, what do they care about, and then position something to them as here's this great solution that we offer. We can do this type of automation. I can set up this type of reporting for you with minimal extra lift on my end in the future. I created that relationship, understand what they care about. Then I can solve things proactively for them in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm looking for kind of a specific example, and one that we've talked about is moving budgets around to deliver results. And the reason why I want to focus in is because the relationship piece here is really important. You have to earn the trust for them for you to get in the room. And then you have to bring them a metric or, a 6-pager that tells them like what you're trying to do and how that aligns with their goals. And that might come as a shock to them, and it might take months. You might get rejected many times. So I'm curious, do you have any examples of a time where that has worked? You don't have to name drop or anything like that, but where you going above and beyond has showed to be worthwhile?
I'd say proving that you put the brand's needs before your own needs repeatedly, driving success, and then eventually needing to test something. You've earned the trust consistently. You're driving results. You're doing all the right stuff. You're communicating frequently with them, and then at some point, hey, here's this opportunity. It may be against your self-interest, seemingly from a cost perspective, from a extra hours required perspective, some sort of negative externality on their behalf. But you can explain to them in a test and learn framework, hey, this is what I want to test. I acknowledge that it's going to cost you more, and I'm going to make more money from this. I think it could be useful for me to test this thing. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Yeah. So having earned trust repeatedly, having that personal relationship, them knowing, this isn't a facade. It's true. Like, you have to operate in a way that they know you have their best interest in heart always. Yeah. And so doing that, giving them something cool, something fun to learn. It gets monotonous if you don't do that stuff anyway. And the industry has perhaps a limited number of very curious people, but they happen to be in director positions, sales positions at some of the big CPGs in particular, because they have a lot of churn and a lot of good, I would say, expertise in some leadership positions. And so those relationships are kind of clinging to those as this is someone that we can really drive business with. So finding them, testing with them, and just making it kind of fun,
Okay, so you bring up a really good point about churn, and I think it's timely because here you are kind of for some people, the perfect account manager. You're curious, you're engaged with the business, you're earning their trust, you're showing up consistently, you're doing all these things that are kind of above and beyond for them, and they're not used to that. What happens when you move off the account and someone has to backfill you? And of course, we all hire qualified people, and we have trust in our teammates, but they might be junior to you. And on one hand, it's a huge opportunity for them. They can step up and they can crush it and bring it in a new way. But you need to restart the cycle when you're that new person. So when, young Zach stepping onto a new account, how do you begin to earn that trust? And what are some of the first things you can do when you start taking over a new account?
I think as the old head on an account, it's important to have the account set up in a way that's understandable and that is best practices for full utilization of tech. So assuming that person did that before, the new person should be coming in, shadowing, learning, how did you set this stuff up, asking why. You should have the base knowledge of understanding retail media, understanding what's the brand's goal in a lot of these scenarios, who are you working with, what do they care about, learning from a personal perspective, the people that you're going to be working with, that comes first, I think.
Yeah.
Because you're already an expert, or you should be an expert in the capacity that you're executing. So understanding personal goals for the folks that you work with, the brand goals, existing pain points, and then it's a nice refreshing time to reset expectations. And so, hey, maybe we meet too frequently and I don't have enough detail to give you that it's actionable. Right. Just checking in, should we reduce the frequency of meetings? It's a great time when someone's new is owning a meeting invite, to just check in with them and just make sure you're meeting expectations and exceeding them, making sure you're hitting all the boxes for what they want to do.
Right.
Generally, it's been over communicating to brands.
Yeah.
Is they're like, hey, we can reduce meeting frequency. You actually don't need to send these reports. I don't open them. I just wait for your commentary. A lot of that stuff happens. So
of course,
just making sure you're not overworking and giving them something they don't care about. So I'd say it's a great reset time. I like to always make sure things are set on my own terms, but with the client's specific goals in mind. So design a new relationship every time you start a new one.
This is kind of a nice transition into tech. You mentioned tech and kind of that initial setup, and this is a perfect bridge into Pacvue. You've been with Pacvue for a long time, one of the oldest employees here, and the tool has changed a lot. And I think one thing that's really exciting about Pacvue in general is obviously we have just the nuts and bolts of what we do, which is incredible reporting, data visualization, insights. We have automation, and these things are saving you time, making you more precise in your day-to-day, right? So when you jump into a new account, with the full arsenal available from what Pacvue offers today, what does that checklist look like of this account is set up from a tech perspective? It's in a really good spot.
Yeah. Share of voice setup, so competitor analysis section, understanding competitive activity, understanding your place in the marketplace, making sure that's fully implemented. So that's all the keywords that you have. One, brand, the ones that the brand care about. Two, high impression keywords that are relevant to the products. Making sure you have that all built out so that you can actually do that quick analysis of performance. But going back to campaign setup and account structure is consistent naming conventions, setting up custom tagging. That's the most powerful and easiest thing to do. A lot of brands and agencies don't take advantage of that because they have previously done a lot of stuff offline, directly in some interface, either Amazon or another retailer. You can go ahead and tag all of that. It's the same thing you would be doing in Excel, but you basically have the most powerful pivot table or set of pivot tables possible within Pacvue. So it really, that's I would say the two things are anything that's time-based, so share of voice because you're tracking it from that time, making sure that's set up, and then once you have your tags implemented, you're ready to understand existing performance and then start to make improvements with automation and everything else.
I want to get into the weeds for a moment on, I agree that those are the foundational setup pieces. I think rules, obviously, you kind of covered it with automation, and I want to talk about rules for a moment because I feel like there are simple rules, which can be dumb rules, and maybe don't necessarily accomplish the goal long term. They make sense when you build them, and then there's no way for you to visualize the impact of that rule. You have to learn by trial and error to find out if it's a good rule.
Yeah.
how long have you been using rule-based logic? What are the benefits, and kind of like what's that foundational setup for rules?
It's Boolean logic, if this then that. So I like to look at what have I done before. If I had unlimited time to manually click through every single thing, what would I do?
Yep.
And I write that down, and then I understand what did I filter to. What are the priorities that I'm trying to make sure I've checked all these things off. Budgeting, keyword bids, placement modifiers, budget between ad types, any sort of retail issues that would impact my interest in spending in a certain way. So buy box sensitivity on certain ads, building my strategy based on that, and then I like to automate all that stuff as much as possible. What do I do? Basically, what would I do Monday when I came back in, having theoretically not looked at the computer for the last 2 days? What happened? And you see, oh crap, this thing. How do I set a guardrail so that I don't, oh crap, this thing?
Yeah.
I want to say, that I spent a little bit more than I intended, but it's within a reasonable, set of bounds. So setting up guardrails, and then using automation to bounce between basically 2 levels of acceptable performance, and then just learn over time.
So the beauty of everything we've just talked about is you've got that your campaign structure is good because you can read the nomenclature, you can check the productivity of the campaign and say, okay, this is what it is intent to be doing, and it's doing it. I'm okay with that. I'm tagging it, so now I can the reporting is simple to filter and get really granular in my reporting. I can leverage my automation with budgeting and rules, right? So now you've implemented, and you've got share of voice kind of giving you some additional firepower in your conversation with the brand about what your efforts are doing and what you're doing with their money. So now you've got all this time back. And how do you spend that time? You've got all this time back because automation is handling all that manual work that you were doing before, maybe for multiple accounts on multiple platforms, right? This is the power of Pacvue. What do you do at that time?
Take more naps. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes.
No, it's spend time with the brand, understanding strategy, and this is real. Pacvue has enabled me to spend all that good time with the finance team, with the sales team, with the marketing team, making sure that we're adjusting strategy, building like a cohesive strategy that meets expectations and targets for every stakeholder at brand X.
Yep.
So it's strategy time, and it's storytelling time, and
relationship building,
yeah. all this stuff that you have to drive performance, but once you've got that checked, it's the hierarchy of needs. We're just moving on up. We've checked off the easy things that are easy but time consuming, and you get to the good stuff. So it's more fun. You test and learn instead of do the same repetitive task over and over. Just make it fun, I think.
Okay, so relationship building and kind of like a customer obsession in a way. These are Amazonian principles, right? And you and I have talked about them. I'm not an Amazonian, but I read all the Amazon books, and I love Amazonians, so I'm surrounded by them in my work. And I'm curious, how do those principles, what are your favorite Amazon principles? How do they tie into your relationship building with your clients, and why are they effective?
Most important is ownership, and that is always taking responsibility for everything, whether it's your fault or a bug or a timing problem or something. It's about ownership, I think, is number one for me, and that is that lends itself to working long hours. It lends itself to acting like you are the brand or the client, not some other party. It may require you to act not in your own self-interest. I'd say that's it.
Yeah.
Ownership is the one.
That's great. What I love about ownership is, especially as an advertiser, you are responsible for the dollars that are being spent as if it's your own wallet, right? And when you have that ownership, you think about retail media completely differently. And I guess a worst case scenario is when you betray that trust, and maybe you overspend your budget. You don't hit a budget goal. You fail to report a mistake or something like that. You've lost that trust a little bit. What can you do when you've done something wrong with the client, and I mean they are rightfully upset about it? What can you do for damage control? I know this is a broad topic. There's a lot of things that could go wrong, but what are those things that you can do immediately to try to fix the problem?
Immediate communication, before, proactively identifying something that you messed up before the client does. Goal would be never for a client to, uncover something that you should already have known. I'd say the cardinal sin is we didn't check something for too long, and the impact was way bigger than it should have been if we were actively in the account. Yeah. So I'd say, one, hopefully that never happens. Yeah. If it does, understanding and communicating, this happened because we messed up on this other thing. That we recognize the gravity of the situation. It's our fault. It's not going to happen again. Yeah. And here's why. Yeah. And the here's why should be automation that you've implemented. So we set bid caps on everything within this type of keyword. Mm-hmm. We set a stop overspend functionality that Pacvue has. Yep. Basically, how can we make sure not just it's not going to happen again? Trust me, because now I don't trust you. Yep. It's not going to happen again because I know I messed up and I want to remove manual error opportunities and get rid of that. All about guardrails. Yep,
agreed with guardrails. And I think I wanted to get there, so this is perfect. We talked about them a little bit with rules. You mentioned it with budgeting. When you're taking on a new account, and whether it's a new account or an existing account, what are those guardrails that matter most? I think you've mentioned it with bids, budgets, those are essential. And then is there anything else that we're missing when it comes to guardrails? Are there communication guardrails? What are some other things that, balls that cannot be dropped?
Yeah, I think primary thing is communicating with the brand, with the client, whatever the exact performance is. Mm-hmm. And so if you have everything in place to communicate where you're spending, why you're spending there, and allow them, communicate the exact state of the state, and then let them tell you, okay, you can actually overspend budget this month because you're doing these 3 things. So as an advertiser, it gives you the ability to do more, to upsell, because you're driving good results and because you're driving clear communication. So as long as you've set up all the things to tell that full story, then you're good to go. So the guardrails would be account set up in the correct way that's actionable, easy to understand, making sure that you've got your dashboard set up so that you can do the quick insights and the fun snippets to the client. I would say the kill switch on don't spend anymore because we've hit budget. All those types of things. I like to set up rules that cap my bids, and I also like to set up rules that increase my bids for particularly non-branded keywords, long tail stuff, because you stop serving impressions. So not necessarily a floor for bids, but if I'm not serving impressions, one, I should know why, because I should be serving it if I'm bidding on it. So increase those bids until I am. So again, always setting, I want to serve at least this and no more than this, and making sure that everything has a increase and a decrease to keep them within those bounds.
Right. Beautiful. We're wrapping up here, and I think in general this has been like a mini masterclass in retail media management, account management, client management, like all these things that are really important. And what I've taken from it is you have to have the performance, you have to be delivering the performance to maintain the client. You have to also have a strong relationship. Those two are foundational. Without them, you're just waiting for your account to get audited or for someone to come conquest your clients, right? What else are we missing? So we've got the performance and we've got the relationship. Is there anything else?
Storytelling is the important, I guess would be the extra important thing. that I think is missing a lot of the time.
Yep.
And so having everything set up appropriately so that you can communicate quickly, but then the freed up time and the interest and the curiosity and all that stuff to learn new stuff, to push the envelope a little bit. I'd say that's it. It's like you have to be able to tell the story of what happened before so that you can say we can make this other thing happen next.
Yeah.
As long as you do this.
Yeah.
And
the curiosity and the trying new things, like that is like the test and learn thing that brands are looking for. What they want is they want performance delivered. They want a good relationship with you. People want to work with who they like, right? But then also, I've heard this time and again is, I like the people who manage my account, but I just don't feel like they're trying new things. I don't feel like they're being curious about my account.
Yep.
And, I agree with you that really is kind of the third thing, is like bringing new value to them, even if they're little small things, right? As small as like doing a store walk, going onto the retailer site. Where are your products? How are you stacking up? It's a very anecdotal experience, but brands love it, and it shows that you're interested and you're curious.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to making sure that you're thinking how they think. So, do they do store walks? Yes. If yes, then you should too, and you should do it in a way that's specific to your inputs, but also keeping in mind what they're doing. So, hey, I noticed this new widget on Amazon. Did you notice that they changed these two things? What does that look like, for you asking them? Because brands they have promotional strategy, they have to deal with content. Hey, I noticed that pricing is lower on these products. Is this a distribution problem? Is Walmart driving pricing down on Amazon? Like, what's happening so that I can better serve your needs?
Right.
So it is being curious. I'll add that to ownership being my favorite of the leadership principles. Learn and be curious is probably next.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a third that's deliver results, right? Isn't that a principle? And we've that encapsulates the whole conversation that we've had. Zach is one of the best strategic thinkers at Pacvue, and he's kind of helping us move into this account management. What is the best practice for account management in retail media? This is for agencies or brands. And we're going to be working to bring a lot more content just like this. So if you have questions for Zach, reach out to him on LinkedIn. You can reach out to me and I will ask him. This is kind of just the beginning of retail media management best practices. I'm Kyle Kirkwood, Director of Training.
Zach Zahar, Account Director, Retail Media.
Thank you. Good job, man.